Let us begin with military rule in Nigeria. This is a very important topic in government. It appears in your exams every single year. By the end of this lesson, you will understand the reasons for military intervention in Nigeria, the major military coups and their leaders, the structure of military rule, the achievements of military governments, the failures of military governments, the transition programs, and how to answer exam questions. Take your notes. Let us go. First, what is military rule? Military rule is a system of government in which the armed forces control the state. The military seizes power through a coup d'état. A coup is the sudden, illegal overthrow of a government. After seizing power, the military suspends the constitution. It dissolves the legislature. It bans political parties. It rules by decrees. Military rule is undemocratic. It is based on force, not on the consent of the governed. Nigeria experienced military rule for most of its post-independence history, from 1966 to 1979, and again from 1983 to 1999, the military governed Nigeria. Only from 1960 to 1966, and from 1979 to 1983, and from 1999 to the present, has Nigeria been under civilian rule. Now let me explain the reasons for military intervention. The military intervened for several reasons. The first reason was corruption and mismanagement by civilian governments. The First Republic politicians were corrupt. They stole public funds. They rigged elections. They used their positions for personal gain. The military claimed it had to step in to save the country. The second reason was the collapse of law and order. The Western region crisis of 1962 and the federal election crisis of 1964 led to violence. The military said it had to restore order. The third reason was ethnic and regional conflicts. The political parties were based on ethnic groups. The NPC controlled the north. The NCNC controlled the east. The Action Group controlled the west. This led to instability. The military claimed it would unite the country. The fourth reason was the failure of civilian governments to address economic problems. The economy was weak. Unemployment was high. The military promised to improve the economy. The fifth reason was the desire for power. Some officers wanted to rule. They saw the chaos as an opportunity to seize power. The sixth reason was the influence of other coups. Coups in Togo, Dahomey, and other African countries inspired Nigerian officers. The seventh reason was the poor working conditions of soldiers. Soldiers complained about low pay, poor equipment, and corrupt officers. Some junior officers led coups to improve conditions. The eighth reason was the failure of the 1963 Republican Constitution. The Constitution did not prevent the crises that led to the collapse of the First Republic. Now let me explain the major military coups in Nigeria. The first military coup was on the 15th of January 1966. It was led by Major Chukwuma, Kaduna, Nzeyegwu, and other young Igbo officers. They killed the Prime Minister, Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, the Premier of the Northern Region, Sir Ahmadu Bello, the Premier of the Western Region, Chief Samuel Akintola, and other senior officials. They claimed they were eliminating corrupt politicians. The coup failed because the officers could not agree on a new government. General Johnson Aguiyi Ironsi, the general officer commanding the Nigerian army, took control. He became the first military head of state. The second coup was on the 29th of July 1966. It was led by northern officers. They wanted revenge for the killing of northern leaders. They overthrew and killed General Aguiyi Ironsi. They also killed many Igbo officers and soldiers in the north. Lieutenant Colonel Yakubu Gowon became the new head of state. The coup led to ethnic violence. Many Igbo people were killed in the north. This violence led to the eastern region seceding as the Republic of Biafra. The Nigerian Civil War lasted from 1967 to 1970. Gowon kept Nigeria united. The third coup was on the 29th of July 1975. Gowon was overthrown while at an OAU meeting in Kampala. General Murtala Ramad Mohammed became the head of state. Murtala promised to return Nigeria to civilian rule. He also started a massive public works program. He moved the capital from Lagos to Abuja. He also launched a campaign against corruption. Murtala was assassinated on the 13th of February 1976 in a failed coup led by Lieutenant Colonel Bukasuka Dimka. General Olusegun Obasanjo became the head of state. Obasanjo continued Murtala's programs. He handed over power to a civilian government in 1979. The fourth coup was on the 31st of December 1983. The Second Republic was corrupt and mismanaged. Major General Muhammadu Buhari led the coup. He overthrew President Shehu Shagari. Buhari promised to end corruption and restore discipline. He arrested many politicians. He launched the war against indiscipline. Buhari's government was harsh. It detained people without trial. It restricted the press. It limited political activity. The fifth coup was on the 27th of August 1985. General Ibrahim Babangida overthrew Buhari. Babangida claimed that Buhari was too harsh. Babangida released political prisoners. He relaxed press restrictions. He promised to return Nigeria to civilian rule. Babangida introduced the Structural Adjustment Program. He also created the two-party system with the Social Democratic Party and the National Republican Convention. Babangida annulled the 12th of June 1993 presidential election. This was the freest and fairest election in Nigerian history. Chief MKO Abiola was widely believed to have won. Babangida annulled the results. This led to a crisis. Babangida stepped down in August 1993. The sixth transition was led by Chief Ernest Shonekan. He was the head of the interim national government. Shonekan was weak. He could not resolve the crisis. General Sani Abacha overthrew Shonekan on the 17th of November 1993. Abacha was the most brutal military ruler in Nigerian history. He arrested and killed opponents. He detained Chief Abiola, who died in custody. Abacha also faced international sanctions. He planned to transform himself into a civilian president. He died suddenly on the 8th of June 1998, before he could do so. The seventh transition was led by General Abdul Salami Abubakar. Abubakar took over after Abacha's death. He released political prisoners. He promised to return Nigeria to civilian rule. He organized elections in 1999. General Olusegun Obasanjo won the presidential election. Obasanjo was a former military ruler who became a civilian president. He took office on the 29th of May 1999. This marked the beginning of the Fourth Republic. Now, let me explain the structure of military rule. Under military rule, the constitution is suspended. The military issues decrees that have the force of law. The Supreme Military Council is the highest decision-making body. It includes the head of state and senior military officers. The Federal Executive Council includes military officers and some civilians. The military appoints administrators to run the states. These administrators are called military governors. They are usually colonels or brigadiers. They report to the head of state. The judiciary continues to function, but it cannot challenge military decrees. The military also creates special tribunals to try cases. Now let me explain the achievements of military rule. The military achieved several things. The first achievement was keeping Nigeria united during the Civil War. Gowon's government prevented the breakup of Nigeria. The second achievement was the creation of states. The military created more states to bring government closer to the people. The third achievement was the movement of the capital to Abuja. The new capital was centrally located and neutral. The fourth achievement was the introduction of the war against indiscipline. This improved public behavior. The fifth achievement was the Structural Adjustment Program. This attempted to reform the economy. The sixth achievement was the creation of local governments. The military strengthened local administration. Now let me explain the failures of military rule. The military also failed in many ways. The first failure was the suspension of democracy. Citizens had no rights. They could not choose their leaders. The second failure was human rights abuses. The military detained people without trial. It killed opponents. It restricted the press. The third failure was corruption. Military rulers were also corrupt. They stole public funds. The fourth failure was the annulment of the June 12 election. This caused a crisis and damaged Nigeria's reputation. The fifth failure was economic mismanagement. The Structural Adjustment Program caused hardship. The sixth failure was the lack of accountability. Military rulers were not accountable to the people. A common exam question asks you to explain the reasons for military intervention in Nigeria. Here is a sample answer. The reasons for military intervention include corruption and mismanagement by civilian governments, the collapse of law and order, ethnic and regional conflicts, the failure of civilian governments to address economic problems, the desire for power, the influence of other coups, poor working conditions of soldiers, and the failure of the 1963 constitution. These factors created the conditions for military coups. Another exam question asks you to describe the major military coups in Nigeria. Here is your answer. The first coup was on the 15th of January 1966, led by Major Nzeogwu. The second coup was on the 29th of July 1966, led by Northern officers. The third coup was on the 29th of July 1975, led by General Murtala Muhammad. The fourth coup was on the 31st of December 1983, led by Major General Buhari. The fifth coup was on the 27th of August 1985, led by General Babangida. General Abacha seized power in 1993. General Abubakar took over in 1998 and handed over to civilians in 1999. Each coup had different causes and consequences. Another exam question asks you to discuss the achievements and failures of military rule. Here is your answer. The achievements of military rule include keeping Nigeria united during the Civil War, creating more states, moving the capital to Abuja, introducing the war against indiscipline, implementing the structural adjustment program, and creating local governments. The failures include the suspension of democracy, human rights abuses, corruption, the annulment of the June 12 election, economic mismanagement, and lack of accountability. Overall, military rule did more harm than good. Another exam question asks you to explain the transition programs of Babangida and Abubakar. Here is your answer. Babangida promised to return Nigeria to civilian rule. He created the two-party system with the SDP and NRC. He organized elections in 1993. He annulled the June 12 election, which led to a crisis. He stepped down in 1993. Abubakar took over after Abacha's death. He released political prisoners. He organized elections in 1999. He handed over to civilian President Obasanjo on the 29th of May 1999. Abubakar's transition was successful. Babangida's transition failed. Here is what you need to take away. Military rule in Nigeria began with the January 1966 coup. Major coups occurred in 1966, 1975, 1983, 1985, and 1993. Reasons for intervention included corruption, lawlessness, ethnic conflict, and economic failure. Achievements included keeping Nigeria united, creating states, moving the capital, and the war against indiscipline. Failures included suspension of democracy, human rights abuses, corruption, annulment of the June 12 election, and economic mismanagement. Nigeria returned to civilian rule in 1999. Understanding military rule is essential for understanding Nigeria's political history. Practice these concepts. When you have them down, move to topic 5.